I love you guys.
Welcome to the Torg Stories podcast. On this episode, Ann and I are going to discuss strategies that can be used for handling pressure, especially during athletic competitions. We read chapter 9 titled Pressure from James Kerr's book titled Legacy, What the All Blacks Can Teach Us About the Business of Life. I'm going to start you off with this.
Okay.
What does it mean? So they talk about controlling your attention. The very first little line is keep a blue head. We'll talk about blue head later. Control your attention. So I want to latch on to that instruction to control your attention. And does that mean anything to you?
I would say it just makes me think about focus. It makes me think about don't let your head, your thinking, I guess, run amok. Focus on the actual practical task that's at hand, if you will, or action that's at hand, rather than going in what if scenarios. So to me, it would be like just control your attention to what you're doing.
And do you struggle with that in any way?
I don't really think I do. I think in life, I don't have a lot of moments like that. For me, it's almost always sports oriented. And even when it was sports oriented, I don't think I was a bad focuser. Uh, that wasn't really my problem in sports, I would say.
I think the time when I most need it um, is when my mind won't stop working. And I brought up before, I think, on the podcast, like if you did something like read 3 Harry Potter books in a row, that narrative voice might take over the kind of lines of thinking in your head. Have you ever thought about anything like that?
No, I've never heard you say that either.
Um, so for me, let's say it's 2 hours to play in a basketball practice, practice, come home and watch 6 quarters of a team are going to play, get out my iPad and draw, concepts versus whatever defense. And now I'm in bed trying to go to sleep and I can't stop working on those problems, or I wake up at 2 in the morning and I'm already in the middle of some of those things I was thinking about. So I need to control my attention and think about something else.
Right. I guess that's not really a pressurized moment for you. It's just your life, a problem you have in life with your obsessive thinking in a way
I
to
think
escape it.
yeah, I'm really using that control your attention as a jumping off point to talk about those things. And then so I could talk about like, well, what do I do about that? And that doesn't ring familiar to you at all.
Yeah, certainly. Of course, I have things in my head that I can't get out of. I
And
don't think of
then
them as pressurized moments, I
do
guess
you
is what
have
I'm saying.
strategies for dealing with that?
Yell at myself, shut up, stop saying this to
Oh,
yourself, let's
oh,
move on.
yeah,
Try to get obsessed about something else that's maybe not as interesting and but more harmless. And so since it's not as interesting, I'll get lost in it for a second, but then I'll get off it and I won't go back to what I was doing. You know what I'm saying? So kind of get you
absolutely.
off track, I guess.
I really like
Or just stay busy, do something busy, go for a walk, something like that.
I like your phrase get obsessed about something else. Um I think another kind of related I think getting divorced, maybe I thought about that in a way that wasn't healthy in the middle of that. When I was working at Vance High School in Charlotte, when I was teaching at Greenwood in Indiana, those are 3 times in my life. And it was like, whoo, I'm a mess. I'm like on the edge of a panic attack, overwhelmed with dread. Those are some times. And when you said get obsessed about something else, I sort of discovered that the craft of doing something, if I focused on that, it took me out of sort of that cycle of negative thinking, which a couple things, I started hiking by myself and I would focus on my steps and I would pay very specific attention to the trees and the plants and do I see any animals and the next step and tying the knot and setting up the tent. And so all of that just, and then I think writing is sometimes that way for me. I know that at first, as Megan and I started to figure out how we were going to work as a relationship 20 years ago, it it was probably maddening for her that if there was chaos at her house, or maybe we were, you know, discussing in a way that was uncomfortable about where we might live or what job we might do. The fact that I could sit down and start writing and in 15 minutes forget everything that was the matter while she probably still stewed about the problem. So all of those are things that I do to get obsessed about something else or pay attention to something else.
Right. Even something as small, obviously the Colts lost today and I wasn't obsessed with it, but I was mad, like, dang, they blew this, they did this. And after 5 minutes of that, I was like, I'm not thinking about this anymore. I'm not going to watch any more football. I'm going to do this, 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 and, pretty much forgot it and am now somewhat over it. You know what I mean? So I'm not thinking about it anymore.
So a lot of those things, I think this chapter has those same kind of strategies. Oh yeah, and I was calling this I took a while on this performance strategies to be a bluehead under pressure.
Okay. The one thing I don't get totally is why are we calling it bluehead? We're calling
Yeah.
it blue because coldness. I mean, that's the
Yeah,
only
I
thing I
think
can come
so.
with. Yeah.
Let's wait on that.
Okay.
Okay, so
I hate the word bluehead, I guess is what I'm saying, but
mm,
whatever.
yeah, I like
It's unattractive phrase. It
mm,
doesn't it doesn't sound good.
I've had some unfortunate using the idea of a bluehead and a redhead with my team. I think red is like steam running hot. The literal redheads on the teams don't love me.
Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't like
Yeah,
that either. Good
right.
point.
So
Yeah.
maybe,
Marge
maybe
Simpson, doesn't she have blue hair? She wouldn't like this.
well, bluehead is good.
I know, but she'd be like,
Okay.
stop talking about my blue
So
head.
I think so a couple things that this all makes me think of. This almost feels gross to me in some ways, but in Greenwood, where I really lost 30 pounds. I went from 205 to 175 in about 2 months working at Greenwood High School in Indiana. And I think trying lots of things to manage my stress and anxiety. And I remember telling, I think, the principal and my friend Rob Irwin, I feel exactly like I felt when I was getting divorced. That's what I told them. It was the same, just like dread about living each day. Um, Breathing in and out through my nose. And I read some book where it was like, feel the nose hairs sort of wave in and wave out as you're breathing. So that's something I will do almost every day that really helps me fall asleep. That's like the thing I do um, when I can't turn off the basketball diagrams. And then a very different solution, and I don't know if this is grounded in any kind of science. If I'll throw on sort of a semi boring podcast where they're on like NBA Team 13, um, and I put my sleep timer on 15 minutes, I usually don't make it to the end of that.
Right. So something's happening, but you're not actually that interested in it, but it's drowning out the other noises. I've
I
heard of the
think,
breath like 3-7 or something, but I've never heard the nose hair thing. That's
yeah.
interesting.
So we do the 4-7-8 breathing with the
Four,
team.
seven, eight. Okay.
Yeah, we were actually just doing that at the table. Me and Charlotte's home, and Izzy and Megan, we were all at the table and we were talking about the breathing, which I do with my team, which we'll get to. So you haven't been in need of the breathing. You don't feel like that's a thing.
No, I haven't been in need of having to calm myself down too much in a while.
So as opposed to calming, when it says control your attention, I think the nose breathing and the podcast directs my attention away from things that are keeping me from doing things like sleeping. I think another thing is I think if you saw me teaching, you would think this is what Bill loves to do most. Um, I mean, I think I look relaxed and confident and loud and in control with a great plan. But I really do, and I've never been managing it better than now, knock on wood. I really do have like a little tiny panic attack, feeling of dread, heart sort of feeling wrong. Um, and then when went back to high school teaching, I think one of the things was I was all of a sudden, instead of teaching like two classes a day, I was teaching seven. And so I went through that feeling seven times a day instead of like once or twice. Um, and and I think one of the ways I manage it is living in the moment and working on something. So like I actually have to set my alarm. So my first class starts at 10 o'clock tomorrow. I'll set my alarm for 9:50. And most day I'm sitting at my desk at App State working on whatever. And my alarm will go off at 9:50 and I'll be like, oh crap. And then it's time to go to class. So I direct my attention and I'm working right up until the moment I walk into class. So I don't really have time to dread it because I've directed my attention and I'm busy.
Right. Dread is no fun. The most I ever dreaded stuff was just living day to day in high school. The
Wow, those are your biggest moments of dread.
dread of going to practice,
Yeah.
dread of going to school, dread of just sitting in a classroom. You know, it was like being in prison for me. And so that was a miserable existence. And so when you went back to high school, to me, it was almost like, oh, he's going back into prison. He's going to start feeling trapped again. I don't like that trapped feeling, I guess. And
I did.
uh,
This seems silly because there's really no different now. And this is, if I was ranking like sources of stress at Greenwood High School, this might be number 20. I mean, it's way, way, way down the list. But I did think I'm in this building every day. And I honestly, when I went there, I thought I would retire there. They paid me really well. There was a really nice retirement package, blah, blah, blah. I thought, I was ready for my kids to graduate from there. But I did start to feel like I'm teaching seniors. Every year, a group of seniors moves out of here, and I'm going to be here for another 25 years.
right. And maybe it's silly, but for me as a student, high school and college, there's just such a freedom in college that you don't have in high school. And so that's what, to me, made it all easier. You know, I could go into a class, and maybe you can do this in high school, but I never would have. I can go into a class as a college student and be like, oh, I don't like this class. I'm dropping it. You know,
Mm.
maybe you can do something like that in high school, but I never far from, very far from my thoughts. I would never think that. So there was like a forcedness to high school, and there's a freedom in my choice. I'm choosing to do things in college. Really kind of getting off subject, I guess. But yeah, for me, I guess
That's what we do. Torque stories. We
yeah,
digress.
I guess for me, the only panic situations I have is I do have small panic attacks sometimes when I'm feeling claustrophobic or something. And the biggest one I've had, say in the past, I don't know, 10 years was on a plane. And how did I get through that? I got through that by listening to the entire Hamilton album and trying to say the lyrics out loud in my head, watching a movie and trying to concentrate on that, although that wasn't as successful. So basically, I listened to the Hamilton album
How did,
over and
how
over
did
to try
you
to get
think
myself.
to, you just invented those?
Yeah, on the fly. It was like, what am I going to do
Yeah,
here?
those are pretty good inventions, I
I
think.
can't cause a scene. I mean, I could, but my God, I would never, it would be horrific. Uh, so how can I not act out or yell out in panic? And those are the only things I could come up with.
Can you think of, I guess, what is there any stress in your life right now? And if so, what would you point to?
I occasionally have stressors, I guess, in at work of having to get something out at a certain time. They're very small though, and I can usually plan it enough and bother people enough that I can get it done. Uh, and the best way I can get something done is no one distract me, no one talk to me, get away from me, don't talk to me. Sometimes I can be a little rude, like, hey, I'm trying to work here, get away from me. Uh, and so I think for me, the best thing is no distractions. And I know I'm in it and I can do something really fast that way. Even in basketball, when I felt pressure, I was always like, somebody come up to me, you got this shot, get away from me, don't talk to me. I don't want to hear you say, I got this shot. I don't want to hear that stuff. Let me just focus myself.
So on page one of chapter nine, so the All Blacks, have you ever heard of the All Blacks?
Yes, I knew what the All Blacks were.
So I don't know. There's some stats on thetorg.com. What's the date here? 2007. They're World Cup rugby champions. New Zealand. It's New Zealand's national rugby team. They won World Cups in 87, 2011, 2015. They have a 76% winning percentage in these, I forget what they call them, independent matches. But we get the story of the All Blacks really choking. They have a big lead and they blow the big lead and they lose in the semifinal. of the World Cup, and then they sort of go into this whole managing, playing under pressure. Could you think of any famous big chokes or personal chokes?
I don't know that I could think of any personal chokes. I didn't really dwell on that. The two biggest chokes I thought of in sports, one was very recent, and it probably wouldn't be called the biggest choice. It's, a recency bias, was when that Toronto pitcher threw home versus the Dodgers threw that
Hmm.
crazy throw home and choked the game away, right? So that was a big time choke. And you could see the panic in his eyes, he was overwhelmed. He didn't know what to do. And then the biggest choke I can remember enjoying, sadly, I did enjoy it because it was against my favorite tennis player, Steffi Graf. Won the French Open. I wrote down the year here. Let's see if I have it. 1999 against Martina Hingis. Hingis was serving for the match at 5-4 in the second set, and ended up choking in the way, very much so mentally. It was all mental. You could see it there. She was crossing the net, which is something you not do to argue with the umpire. She served it underhanded. She was just choking right before your
Yeah.
eyes. So it was kind of tough to watch, but I was glad she choked because I did want her to lose. But so
We
that's the
got
biggest
a
choke I can remember.
Your tennis story reminded me of the Royal Tenenbaums. Remember that choke?
He
Uh,
just froze, didn't he? He didn't
yeah,
do anything.
he's
Yeah.
well, he did the underhanded serve, I think,
Oh,
is
did
why
he do that answer?
he was in love with the Gwyneth Paltrow
Right.
character. Um, I did think of a personal choke, but I just thought of it. So, do you know that one time I did one set at a comedy club?
I do. I
Yeah.
remember you telling
I
me the
drove up
story.
there.
Yeah.
I lived in Connecticut, and
Seems wild.
I definitely just like did like told some stories that I hadn't really planned, and I was really disoriented. So you're on stage and you got a spotlight on you, and I couldn't see anyone. So I was like there was darkness and there was the sense of people, and there was kind of a blinding light on me, and it went terrible, and it was just a total flop. And it would take me a while. I mean, I'd like to think I could do better now, but I probably could have used some of this stuff.
Right. There's a uncomfortable to me trailer coming out right now with Will Arnett being
Hmm.
a stand-up and standing in front of everybody with lights, and he's like a little bit disoriented. And I thought, oh, nightmare scenario for me.
Yeah. So the thing, I mean, I think incredibly recent example. We're playing Avery last Saturday. We're up 35-20 at the half. As a coaching staff, we sort of think through what could happen. As a team, I talk about, um, what are ways that Avery can get back in this game? And we come out in the second half. And we actually had prepared for this a little bit. They hadn't done it yet, and I didn't even think of it at halftime. And they come out in a 1-2-2 extended trap, which becomes the catalyst for a 12-0 run by Avery. So now it's 35-32. And so a lot of there's a lot of situations where you just fold right there. And it reminds me of when I was in my 20s coaching at North Miami High School. We had a big halftime lead. Similar situation. Team goes into a half court trap, and we just choke. And we choke and lose in the sectional in a game we should have won. But this team, um, you know, didn't implode and did ground themselves and did start making plays. So I think this whole chapter is kind of about um, learning strategies, devices to sort of not be overwhelmed in these kind of situations.
Right. And a lot of times a choke isn't one action. It's one bad action and everybody
It's
else
snowball. Right.
compounds against that bad
Yep.
action and goes over it. And if you can stop it right away and just say, hey, that was a run. I'm going to do, we're going to just keep doing what we're supposed to be doing. It stops it. So yeah.
I ask you to list, and I wonder if this is so obvious that everyone would come up with the same names. Just give me a couple of the most pressurized moments in sports. Like, what are like sporting moments you're like, whew, this is a lot of pressure.
I remember you asking me to do that, but I can do it. To me, it's the individual moments to me are much more
Nice.
when a golfer has to make a putt
That was my number
for
one.
yeah, for the the Masters or whatever. That's a big deal, and people choke all the time. Sometimes it's even a tiny little putt, and you think anybody could make that, right?
I think one thing that should fit into the definition of the most pressurized moments is it's a moment when you reasonably should succeed.
Right, exactly.
Like you're
Yeah.
shooting a free throw and you're an 83% free throw shooter. It's a little 4 foot putt. So like that, I think compounds it more than like a last second 27 foot 3 pointer. You're like, I
A
have
little bit of
to shoot
luck
it.
involved.
You
Yeah,
have to shoot it.
right.
Yeah,
And I also think something like tennis, a serve, you're serving
that's a
for the
good one.
match.
I didn't have that.
You faulted, and now you only have one serve left. Are you gonna? How many times have I seen people double fault? And it's like all you had to do is get it in the box. Why did you double fault? So that to me, it's like when everybody's quiet, they're all looking at you. You have to do the action.
Oh, that's a good one. Everything's quiet. Everybody's looking at you. I
A
think
field goal, a field goal
I
too,
have
right?
field goal as number
Yeah.
3, because I think those are reasonable. And then even though the chances of success are less, these World Series games where there's 2 outs and a runner on third and the 2-2 count, a full count, or the bases are loaded, I mean, for pitcher, especially for pitcher and batter, those seems like highly pressurized situation. And I would assume that the people in these situations have a lot of this. They have some kind of strategies for this stuff.
Right. To me, a pitcher, when the bases are loaded and you have three balls, and it's like you
This
have to
has to
throw a
be,
strike,
yeah.
but you can't make it such an easy strike that the guy is going to tee off on it. So, yeah, those moments always seem filled with pressure.
So in this reading, they say Greg Norman famously fell apart in the 1986 Masters, relinquishing a 6-hole lead going into the final day.
Yeah, I don't remember it.
And
Nope.
there's this guy, there's the Jean Van whatever French guy who lost the British Open with a huge lead when he hit it out of bounds. And I think even on the back of his putter it says never surrender. I think he ends up making a 7 and forces extra holes, but he loses. I watched a whole documentary on that.
Yeah, I've never heard
I
of him.
loved it. Yeah, I wish
Don't
I
follow
could.
golf
It's
that
like
well.
Van something is his last name. Okay, so there's first. I guess I'll read you both and see if you have a comment. There's a 1 paragraph sentence on this page. Clearly, in any game played with the body, it's the head that counts. And then Bob Knight had this saying, "The mental is the physical as 4 is to 1."
Right, I guess I'd have to think on Bobby's for a second. But certainly I agree. How many times have we seen people with extraordinarily uh, huge amounts of talent, athletic talent, and they don't make it? And why aren't they making it? Well, it must be mental, right? They're not making it because they don't have the good mental approach to practice. They're not making it because they're in games, they panic or whatever. So I think it's been proven over and over that the mental, obviously, you have to have
Now
a lot of
that
athletic talent, but yeah,
that is a big ratio,
what ratio?
4 to 1.
Right. Repeat the phrase. I'm going to,
The mental is to the physical as 4 is to 1.
oh, I see. Four times is
Yeah.
as important. Yeah.
I do think that like if you pick out people like I mean even Steph Curry's a good example, even though I realize his coordination is incredible, or John Stockton, or they're the I've heard lots of different athletes talk about this. They have just a naively ridiculous self-confidence.
Right. Yeah. I
Like
can
there's
see that.
no way you don't really even have the right to be as confident as you are, but it makes all the difference.
Right. I
It's
mean,
not
how do you get that
it's
though?
not the perfect shooting technique, right? It's just the belief that you can do it. Okay. Okay, we're up to redheads and blueheads, and
Let's go. I don't know many blue
so the
heads.
the goal, according to this chapter, is to be a bluehead, not a redhead. I don't know that it so there's parts of these names that we don't like, but I don't know if that's worth going over. Coming up with
Probably not. I think I said it already.
but I do go over this every year with my team and bring it up and we breathe and meditate and visualize before every game. And I inherited that from Laura Berry, the previous coach, and the team wanted to keep doing it. And I had to go into this area that I would have probably previously scoffed at. Although I did some visualization even in my teen years. Um, and now it's become one of the most important things we do. And I think I could point to a million examples in the last 4 years, including four-time conference champs, going to the Final Four, winning 25 games, whatever it was, 3 or 4 years in a row, of just this group, um, you know, being a bluehead in pressure situations. Okay, let's do redheaded first. Symptoms of being a redhead: you're tight, inhibited, results oriented, anxious, aggressive, overcompensating, desperate.
Sounds all true. I think the desperate really rings true. Overheated, yeah. I mean, certainly. Your heartbeat, your blood pressure, it's all increased and you can't control it.
And then the blue head is loose, expressive, in the moment, calm, clear, accurate, on task.
Focused, yes, I would say.
So I think thinking about the two shots you just missed or the ball you threw away or dwelling on, oh my gosh, we could lose this. Um, those are kind of the um, most common things that athletes do that get them in trouble, or me, the coach. And then loose, those are things you can control. Like I can cheer for Ann. I can give you a high five. I can smile. I can celebrate. I can pump my fist. I can joke if it's my personality, which it is, to joke with the opponent. Somebody else might talk trash, to interact with the crowd a little bit. Um, Also to focus on like, am I in help side? Am I throwing up my left hand on a right-handed shooter? Just focusing on what does this play need? It's the cliche, one play at a time, instead of like, oh my God, we might lose this game.
Right, yeah, keeping your mind onto the task. I mean, one thing I was going to say is how many times have you seen someone not be able to control their frustration? To me, it's always, as a spectator, I'm always like upset at that. Like, how many times have you seen someone make a turnover or something, lose the ball, and immediately they foul the person,
Yeah.
right? Because they're like, oh, I got to get that ball back from you immediately. I can't believe that you didn't really steal that from me. So now I'm going to do something dumb. So it's like, move on. I guess that's such a split moment. It's hard to move on in that split moment, but or like somebody will, run into the end zone and drop the ball as they're running in, like I've seen some
Mm.
Colts players do, and then be so upset they're like throwing water bottles on the side, and then they go out and do something else dumb. So I think it's also controlling your emotions and not letting them overtake you
I
in a bad way.
I may have this, hopefully I have the details of this story right, but again, Laura Berry, who gave me this book, wrote me a nice little note when I got the head coaching job after she left. I remember there's a player named Brooke Bird, and what I remember about her, um, hopefully it's right, is that when she made a mistake, she clapped her hands. And I've never seen a high school player move on to the next play quicker than her, probably. So she obviously had this strategy of just a hand clap, which moves her on to the next play. And I think currently this team is one of the best, if not the best team, 1 through 10, um, of players who just move on to the next play.
Right. I wonder if there's any kind of drill you can do, or maybe there is, that kind of reinforces that. Like if you're doing something and someone makes a mistake, you have to do something else right away. I don't know. Some kind of drill that could be developed. I'm
Yeah,
sure there must be.
I mean, I think we talk about all these same things with my team in little chunks, not in an hour long podcast. We get the quotes. We visualize going to the next play. Um, I certainly talk to players either privately or call it out in public. I know I have some players who clap or smile, and they probably look like they're weirdly smiling sometimes. Like, "Hey, what are you smiling about out there? You just," but I think they're moving on to the next play. And so a lot of times it just has to do with hustle. It's sometimes it's just building habits, like taking you out immediately if you don't move on to the next play and saying, "Hey, and you got to get the next play. You get another chance," and then it starts to sink in.
Right. And not being afraid to make mistakes too, is part of it. if you make one mistake and you get pulled out, how are you going to recover from that? So I think coaches have to kind of know that too.
So they have this section. I think one of the things they have you doing first is recognizing when your thinking isn't what it needs to be. So that could be stress at work. Um, that could be making a mistake in a game. And so they talk about this thing called triggers. I'll read that and just sort of like, what do you think this means? In fact, though, we all have our preferred representational system. We also have the embedded auditory, visual, kinesthetic triggers. The trick is to recognize when they are firing in our brains and when the effect is negative.
Yeah, I'm not sure that I understand that totally.
So if I go,
Expound.
I guess they're saying there are triggers in our thinking that fire either unhelpful behaviors and thoughts or helpful. So if we said auditory triggers, I mean, I think I'm only focused on the positive. And so an auditory trigger might be the literal saying of next play.
Oh, right. Trigger yourself into doing the right thing is what you're saying.
So I recognize my maybe it's pregame and I recognize my thoughts of dread or panic. And so I have an auditory thing that triggers a different behavior, but I actually don't have an auditory one. The auditory example I can think of is saying next play in the game.
Right. Well, you have your alarm maybe for your class. I guess that could be a trigger. I don't know.
So
Saying, get ready, get your
visual,
stuff together.
Charlotte was just talking about how um, feeling overexcited or extremely nervous during the national anthem. And so I will say, like, for example, this is just, I could think of 10 of these, but we played a game where the stands were full and the baselines were full of people standing, six deep on each end of the gym. And this game was to go to the Final Four. So you could see where you're a high school kid standing for the national anthem. You've been in those situations yourself.
Whenever I was listening to the national anthem, I always touched on my fingers over and over.
Perfect. So that would be
Uh,
kinesthetic. In this
so
list of,
yeah, maybe that just kind of helped me think about I'm going to play a game, not think about the crowd. When I played basketball, I don't know about you, but it was like the crowd wasn't even there to me. Like when you're playing, it's like obviously I sensed the excitement and the cheering and stuff. And in fact, when the crowd was sparse, I felt it more, I guess. It was like odd and weird. But if it was an excited crowd, it wasn't like I was picking things out in the crowd or even hearing the crowd. You know what I'm saying?
yes. I thought it was depicted pretty well in a film called For the Love of the Game. It had
Mm.
Kevin Costner, or I think that's what it was called. Yeah. Kevin Costner is like pitching his last game in Yankee
Oh,
Stadium for the
baseball.
Detroit Tigers. Good movie. I really like it. I guess people, whatever, it's mixed reviews for most people on. And you know what? He actually used one of these triggers now that I think about it, and I was getting ready to make fun of it. He would say, clear the mechanism.
Clear the So yeah,
So,
it's just something that reset his
so
mind.
he
Yeah.
heard, the Yankee fans heckling him. And when he said clear the mechanism, everything would be muted. That was my sensation. My sensation playing without saying clear the mechanism was a muted crowd that I heard at full steam after I made a play. So if I hit a free
Right. Yeah.
throw or I made a big shot, then I like fully heard the crowd. But most of the time I wasn't thinking about it at all.
Yeah, most of the time I wasn't. And even sometimes when the coach would be yelling, it's like I wouldn't hear him. And people would be like, have to hit me and be like, hey, you're being yelled at over there, go listen. So yeah, I just think you're just kind of in the moment and it feels like you're on a
So
separate thing.
to go back to these triggers, to close the loop on that, Charlotte was saying she stares at one of the stars on the flag. So that would be the visual one. And somebody in this,
Hmm.
one of these all blacks guys, he stares at a spot on the scoreboard, right?
Right. Yeah.
And there's a kinesthetic trigger for you. That was your fingers.
My fingers. Right. And I would usually stare at the ground.
Some all blacks here, they scrunch up their toes in their boot.
Right. Never done that one.
They
Interesting though.
splash water on their face, which
Kind of a
seems
shock, I guess.
in
Yeah.
some ways impractical to me.
It's like when the players hit their heads on the sideline.
Oh, maybe.
The NFL guys, I don't know, but they're kind of
Yeah.
psyching each other up, I guess. But
Okay. So I think I've got a suggestion. Oh no. I mean, I already said it kind of. You don't need to hear it. Okay. Well, there's this section, this paragraph that talks about the guy scrunching up his tones, be in the present, regain your situational awareness. There's a phrase that says breathing slowly and deliberately. In my TikTok scroll, someone asked Steph Curry, what's one of the most important things about you being able to play basketball the way you can play it that people probably don't know?
okay.
And his answer was breathing.
Oh,
He talked about controlling my breathing and the breaths he takes and the ways that he calms himself down. It was just like it was the Steph Curry version of this chapter.
right. I think they called it anchoring in the book or in the chapter,
Great.
right? So you're anchoring yourself in the moment rather than in your emotions about the moment, I guess is what I would say. So yeah, I would agree with the breathing because I don't, to me, when I played basketball, it was like the first 2 minutes, I guess because of all the adrenaline, like I'd be out of breath. I would feel like I'm exhausted. I must be out of
Yes,
shape.
I
And
definitely
it's just
remember that.
because I guess you have all the adrenaline and you're burning it so quickly. Um, and it seems like if you could control your breath in those situations, that you could stop that from happening and play more normal.
I didn't bring it up at the beginning because I thought we were moving a little slow there, but the one thing I remember from high school is getting too excited before the game started.
Right.
I
Hmm.
remember doing like me and Kevin Larkin doing dribble zigzags on the sides while, you would do that while other people were shooting and then you would trade. And I couldn't breathe and I was drenched in sweat.
Right. Yeah.
So
It's just your adrenaline, your
I did that
excitement, your
all wrong.
anticipation.
Whatever warm-ups are, I did it all. So now, I mean, I think there's a lot of different ways to get ready to play well. Some of these teams we play, they go crazy. I mean, they are chanting and yelling and banging lockers, and you would think they're ripping the lockers off the sides of the walls, and we can hear them down the hall. I can't hear people talk, but when they're screaming and chanting, you can hear them. We're probably, I don't know, 12 yards from where their locker room is. And we are breathing, and they're screaming and banging on lockers, and we are like doing our 4, 4, 7, 8 breathing.
Right. Yeah. It seems like a real too much energy being extended to me on their side. And also, I mean, how do you escape a panic attack? They're almost always about breathing as the
Yeah.
steps of how to get out of it. So, breathing just slows your heart rate down and slows the rush of adrenaline down, I think. And so,
And again, I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm just saying
right, yeah,
it's a
yeah,
huge contrast in how the team is preparing to go out and play.
right. I mean, what does adrenaline do, right? Adrenaline causes you to be able to overexert yourself, but it's just for a short snap of time, and then it kind of drains you. So I think you just want to control that. Unless you're in you're lifting a car off your grandma or something.
So you use that word anchors. It says in this chapter that chapter 7 is all about anchors. Here's a couple sentences about it. These actions are anchors and they have a particular function. They're designed to bring the players into the moment, into clarity, into the blue. It is easy to see how this technique is applicable to pressurized business environment. That's the kind of sentence where I'm like, what? I mean, whatever. You don't need to say that.
Right, yeah. Well, they're trying to be appeal to a broad audience of readers, I guess. Even something like I think when people are nervous, so they rub their legs, or I feel like you and mom do that a lot. Like you would rub your thighs. Um,
I was rubbing them 2 minutes ago. I rub my thighs, I rub the back of my head, I bounce my leg.
right.
And
Our
so
mother also rubbed
does
her
that
thighs like that.
qualify as a good anchor, or are you saying that as a negative?
I was thinking of it as an anchoring thing,
Yeah.
yeah, as something that you can do passively to calm yourself. I mean, just like somebody with severe autism has their stems, it's like a small stem in a way. And what do those do? Those get you in a habit and you feel more comfortable. And so maybe it's grounding you, anchoring you a little bit.
So we would define an anchor as something physical you do that brings you into the moment.
Right. I mean, I think the name anchor is really a great name for it.
Yeah.
You're posting yourself into the ground, if you will.
Yeah.
You're not flying away. You're grounded.
So after, I think one thing I struggled with in this chapter that I now think I see more clearly. The chapter offers a variety of techniques to dealing with pressure that don't necessarily fit nicely together, or that you don't have to do them all.
Right. Yeah, I think so. I mean, they list three, right? I wrote them down. Anchoring, maps, and mantras.
Okay,
Um,
let's do maps. Um,
okay.
I think they actually, I think mantra fits under the umbrella of map. Feel free to argue after I read you these two sentences. So when they transition from anchors to maps, he says, and he is, I think, some, I don't know who he is. I'm sorry.
I think, you know what? I think it was Suvorov, wasn't it?
Oh, it's
Which
a
I was
gaze,
like, I can't believe they're mentioning this Russian general from the 1700s so much. He
Bede
was
Bro
mentioned several times.
Bede Brosnan?
Okay,
Brosnan?
well, that wasn't it. But did you notice that they mentioned
No,
Suvorov?
I probably
No.
didn't even know. I probably don't even know who that is.
Right. Well, he's a Russian general strategist from the 1700s.
Okay.
And I
And
thought,
you,
I can't believe I'm seeing the drop name of Suvorov here.
yeah. Okay. I don't know who this is. Some performance guy. Maybe he's one of the All Blacks. Anyway, maps force clarity, he says. You can't put bullshit on a map. In high performing domains, he says people have the same maps, the same common language. This common language, whether and these are the maps, a schematic, words, phrases, or mantras delivers clarity. If you have direction and you want to go in, if you have a direction you want to go in, if you can describe it succinctly and clearly, that's your starting point.
Right. And I think they made a great example of pilots always going to the manual, going to the step, the standard operating procedure. Hey, these are the procedure. We're losing altitude. What do I do? Well, here's number one, what I do. Here's number two, what I do. And so as a basketball player, you might be thinking, you might be panicking, but you're on defense and you're guarding someone with the ball. So you're like, what do I do? Oh, this person's bad with their left hand. I'm going to force them to the left hand or something. So you just think of like the next task to do rather than thinking of the what ifs again.
So that pilot, now they call this a mantra, and I don't, so a schematic, let me give you the pilot mantra and then we'll circle back to schematics. You mentioned what do pilots do when things are going wrong? Their mantra was aviate, navigate, communicate.
Right. I guess their mantra, they're saying this is what I do.
So, I think if this team I have panics, I think they're going to panic against pressure defenses and traps and not knowing where to go with the ball. And I don't have, it has to be three. In here, they talk about the rule of three. So does it really have to be three? It's probably helpful if it's three. And then is there really a three-word phrase? And so the rugby team has a phrase, and then actually the words don't really mean much to me because I don't know about rugby or soccer, and they seem to be soccery kind of words. So I don't have a three-word mantra for my team versus pressure. Maybe I'm thinking of it too narrowly. Maybe it's just for playing.
Right. Or maybe if you really thought on it, you could come up with it. I don't know. I think it'd have to be probably a little bit creative, but I think the three word for the pilots is really great. I like it.
Really great. Yeah.
They
And there's another
gotta
one.
fly the plane. I forget
Okay.
what the second one was, but
So
yeah.
I'll give you another one. Meanwhile, paramedics and ski patrollers, by the way,
No, ski patrols. I've been, they've tended to me several times.
I often teach ski patrollers. We ski here in Boone, North Carolina,
Oh,
and
you mean as you
a lot of my students,
you don't teach them how to ski patrol.
I do not. They are students who are on the ski patrol,
Yeah.
and I have a fair amount of EMTs somehow. Anyway, meanwhile, paramedics and ski patrollers have a mantra for first aid situations: assess, adjust, act.
Right. And I think that's probably for like ER doctors too, right?
I
You
mean,
got to
it's a good,
assess what is wrong. What is wrong? How do I treat this person? Right?
and yeah, and in their case, I think they assess the surroundings. Like,
Right.
is
Are
it
they in
safe here? Are
danger?
there snowmobiles? Are there more skiers?
Can they breathe? Are they
Yeah.
under a snow? Yeah.
Um, okay. So schematic, I don't know if do you remember them getting into schematics? And to me, a schematic is like an infograph or something.
A schematic is a map, in
Yeah.
a way.
Do
Yeah,
they mean it like
it's
a
like a cross-reference guide of the interior of your computer or something. There could be a schematic of that.
so what do they mean in the list? So words I get. I mean, to me, where aviate, navigate, communicate, I guess that becomes a mantra, not a word because it's three. And a word might be next words and phrases could be like next play, right? And then
Right.
a mantra, we get lots of examples of mantra. I don't know what they mean schematic in this context.
I guess a plan is what I would think of a schematic. We use the word schematic design sometimes in architecture, and I'm not clear as
Yeah.
day on what that means either.
I mean,
But
as I look around, um, our dad, for example, has a picture of himself with John Wooden at a clinic. And John Wooden in his pyramid of success has been in my life since I was a teenager, which of course became a thing with Ted Lasso. Ted Lasso has it hanging in his office. So right above my head, is a schematic of the pyramid of success. So maybe it's like that, but smaller.
yeah, to me also, I guess I think of it like this, like a basis of design. Like this is the blueprint of the design, if you will, the blueprint of your design of thinking. John Wooden's pyramid is his blueprint of the way he wants you to think and operate. So go back to your schematic, your guidelines, uh, your ideal way of operating in your sport or something. That would be the schematic. I guess that's what I would say. Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's a little
You know
harder.
where and I don't know that the pyramid of success does this for me. I actually have, I mean, Dad weirdly bought me three copies of it. So I have a,
Probably not that weird. Yeah.
yeah, I have a copy. Right, I'm looking up at it right now in front of my desk, and I have it in my office, or in the basketball office at Watauga. But maybe I feel like a little lost, and like, what am I doing? And maybe I look up at that and I see at the bottom, industrious, friendship, loyalty, cooperation, enthusiasm. And I look up the pyramid and it says poise, confidence. So maybe that grounds me. And I could see there being, but I don't know,
It
something.
could almost be your game plan too. Look, go back
Yeah.
to the game plan.
Well,
What are you supposed to be
I
doing?
think
Yeah.
that's a good example because if we watch NFL football, these guys are holding cards the size of my IMAX screen. Um,
Right.
I have a double-sided sheet of paper that I might maybe nothing's going on offense, or maybe all of a sudden I see a box and one and I wasn't ready for that. And I pull out that piece of paper and in the smallest print possible because you don't see box and ones very often. It says things I like against box and one, and there's like three things there that I like. I'm like, oh yeah, and then that. So I guess that works for that.
Right. You're going back to your plan. You're
I don't
going
really
back to
have
the
a map and it
design.
doesn't have pictures on it, but I am going
Yeah.
back to the plan under those situations. Okay.
Right.
All right. So we get to um I guess they're summing up no, they're summing up. What are we calling those? Not mantras. Mantras one of the three.
How to control your attention.
Yeah, but what was their word? Their word for that was nope, he's just talking about common language. Okay. So I'm going to sum up the end of that section. Controlling our attention through anchoring. Give me an example, Ann.
Squeezing your toes into the ground.
Maps,
Looking at the standard operating procedure on what to do when you lose an engine.
mantras.
I guess the saying Om.
Oh, that's nice. They do go through that.
Yeah. Um.
Um,
That's the
I,
one I probably feel the farthest away from. Like I can't imagine meditating. Every time I've meditated and it's been forced upon me, I've not really been able to do it. I'm distracted. I'm stopped. I'm bored. I'm like,
I
I
fall
can't close
asleep.
my eyes this long. I have my contacts in. I don't even want to close them this long. You know.
Yeah. Um, okay. I
Also,
can't.
I did write something about Suvorov because he was the guy who said that there's three parts of your brain, and I guess I never thought about it. And maybe it's obvious. It's obvious what the three parts of the
So
brain are.
far, it's not obvious to me.
He said there are three parts of your brain: instinct, thinking, and emotion.
What was oh, instinct.
Instinct, yeah. And to
Oh, I
me,
like
in
where you're going with this.
a panic at a situation where you might choke, you're thinking too much and you're ruling on your emotion too much. And you just need to relax and let your instinct take you over more to me. And it's how to relax your body into doing that.
And that was tremendous. I can't remember if we're where is that? Boy, I like that section. I'm gonna have to flip pages, but you reminded me of something else. And I think the thing that I needed to learn, which this talks about, and I learned it in a different way. My mind and my logic and the decisions I decide to make can lead my emotions in the direction they want to go. And the backside of that is letting your emotions dictate what you decide to do. I'm afraid, I'm unconfident, I'm worried. And because I'm afraid, I do X, Y, and Z. I love this person, I don't love this person. I can decide, I know what love is. I know when you love someone how you behave. If I behave in the way I know, then the feeling of love will come in behind it. I know that's not quite what they're writing about here, but that's what they're saying. They're saying like the logical decisions you make, where you came up with this mantra, you came up with this scheme of anchoring yourself, and you do those things, and your feelings will follow, at least in the sense that you're not panicked and unable to make decisions or move.
Right. I think it's one thing it's tough is that you can know that sometimes the emotion is great and sometimes it's not so great. Sometimes it can lead to great things. Like if, you know, think of a person who gets mad on the court and it just makes them, and they jaw and they talk crap to each other and it makes them actually play better. They're getting themselves in an emotional state that they know they can operate well from. But other people could get in that same emotional state and just destroy things and, get a flagrant foul and ruin the whole thing. So it's kind of knowing and understanding your own emotions, I guess, too, and not letting them totally take control of yourself. I mean, how many people kill somebody because of their emotions
Hmm.
have overtaken them, right? So you have to kind of learn, we all get angry, but why do some people get so angry and they kill somebody? So you are destructive in some way. And
Why?
so learning to
Right.
control that.
So there's the momentary urge. I can think of 10 examples of this, but there's the momentary urge of firing my PlayStation controller into the middle
Right.
of the
I was just thinking
television,
that too. Yeah.
but we have never done that.
Right. I always stop. Or, someone punching the TV. You see
And
somebody
we
punch the
know that
TV.
people do it.
Right.
Somehow we're able to not do it.
Picking up a book and throwing it across. Now, have I ever thrown something? I have. But
Yeah.
it's always been something that has, when the Indiana Hoosiers lost when I was a sophomore, I think in the Sweet 16 or Elite Eight, I don't know, they were supposed to win the whole thing. When they lost, I threw the pillows into the blinds of my patio door.
Take
It caused
that.
a little destruction to the patio blinds because they were cheap and dumb. But, we were angry. We did something. But I didn't punch the TV because I was controlled enough of my emotions to be like, hey, that TV cost X amount of money and I don't want to buy a new TV, right?
You were talking about when okay, I'll just say it. When you're consciously thinking about your form, that's not actually how you perform the best. And if there's something I tend to in this chapter, what I'm about to read you is what I do. And I'm actually kind of surprised this is in here because this doesn't really, yeah, I do see some connections, but I'm going to read this to you. Um, and then we'll talk about it. Syed was competing at table tennis at the Sydney Olympics when he found he could barely hit the ball. Instead of just doing it, using the subconscious part of the brain, which is a very efficient deliverer of a complete task, people who choke exert conscious control and it disrupts the smooth working of the subconscious. I'll keep going. It's what tennis coach Nick Bollettieri calls the centipede effect. If a centipede had to think about moving all its legs in the right order, it would freeze, the task too complex and daunting. The same is true of humans. I am prone to really, really, for example, overanalyzing my shot, just like the path of the ball up through my left eyebrow, where my hands are, the ball's coming off my fingertips, the leg bend, when probably what I need to do is clear my mind, pick out a spot, pick something like up and over the rim, and let my body make the ball go where I want it to go.
Yeah, two things. One thing I would say is sometimes if I think of one aspect, it does help. Like I'm getting
Yeah.
ready to swing the golf club and I think, slow down, don't
Nice.
hit so hard or something. Or like when I'm trying to hit a ball and I'm like, wait on the ball, I'll say one thing to myself. That'll work. But if you start thinking everything, and my second thing was, we're talking about the yips. I forgot about the yips. This is the yips.
Is that word even mentioned here?
I did not see it mentioned, but
We
it's the
are.
yips, right? It's
Yeah.
like a pitcher who is pitching and suddenly they can't pitch. They can't throw the ball. And they always, I think that's the most common, that's where yips come from, right? With the pitcher.
I think that in chipping, I think putting and chipping is also heavy yips.
Yeah,
I
I feel like originally it came from a
okay. I
pitcher
don't know.
not being
Right.
able to throw the ball. You cannot throw a strike. He's got the yips. Where's the yips come from? Love to know that.
Nice. And I can't find the other. I had two spots marked. Now I can't remember where the other spot was.
Well, that's unfortunate.
Maybe I'm just moving on. I think we're getting toward um
I think you just want to facilitate your body to use muscle memory and act like how it knows already to act because of you practice so much, you know what you're doing, instead of overthinking or letting your emotion control your actions. And I think if you let all those things happen in life, it'll work better for you too, right? Anybody who's brooding about one thing that happened to them at work, well, you're not going to get much work done, right? So, unfortunately, it doesn't happen to me at work very often, but
so we get this opening story of a choke job, and then we get a little story of when the All Blacks come from behind and win and don't choke. So this is a couple paragraphs of what it looks like, and you should hear all the things we've been talking about, and then I might mention just a little bit more about my team, and then I think we're done.
all right, let's hear it.
All right. So fast forward from Cardiff 2007 to Auckland 2011, from a Rugby World Cup quarterfinal to a World Cup final, from a team heading towards defeat to a team heading towards victory. It's the same two sides playing, New Zealand versus France. It's just as tight, but this time New Zealand leads by 1 point. Read the body language. Richie McCall breathes, holds his wrist, stamps his feet, reconnecting with himself, returning to the moment. He looks around. There are no glazed eyes now, no walking dead. Brad Thorne throws water over himself, cooling his thoughts. Kieran Reid stares out to the far distant edge of the stadium, regaining perspective. New Zealand, the stadium of 4 million people, is less calm. The dread casts a long cloud. The spectators can't help but flash back to the bad pictures. They are in the red, but the All Blacks stay in the blue.
Right, he knows a lot of details of what they look like in that moment. Um, I guess I would also say, oh, it just scared it right out of my head what I was going to say.
So the end of this is they hold on and win.
Oh, I know. Also, they just got more experience. They learned experience how to deal a pressurized moment, right? The first time they were in quarterfinals, they were probably a newish team. They didn't know how to do it, and that experience of having failed, they have that experience for the finals. I mean, how often do you see someone make the playoffs and go all the way to the Super Bowl the first year, right? You got to gain that experience, and that's why the champions are champions and
I
return,
mean,
right?
I
You got to
do
make that breakthrough.
again, I'm not saying I could do all these things. I think if you take I'm more of a James Harden defender than not. I do think, for example, one of the best things about his game is getting people great shots. And if the other team is taking James Harden away and he's getting his teammates great shots, I'm not sure what he's supposed to do. But there certainly is probably an 8 to 10 year history of some of his worst games. Like, why isn't he shooting? Why isn't he driving anymore? He seems to have not grown in that area in the way that he might have, meaning it wasn't a lock that this group of All Blacks were going to grow into world champions. They could have easily never made it and
Oh, for
folded, and they
sure,
fired
right.
the coach and they replaced the players, and so they. I think yes, no doubt.
It didn't let the failure get in their head and carry them to an inevitable failure again, right? Perhaps James Harden has heard so many media people say this about him. It's like now it's in his head and he can't get over it. So he actually
Hmm.
needs to work on his mental approach on these playoff
And
games.
I
But they're not
wonder,
going to make the playoffs, so he'll be clear this year.
he'll be, yeah, yeah, that's right. Yeah, it doesn't look good for the Clippers.
Doesn't look good for the Clippers. Yeah.
I think related to that, so my team, there's 18 players in the program. Nine of, I should say 18 healthy. We have a couple kids out for the season with injuries. There's 18 kids playing in the program. Nine of them are freshmen. Um, Four of the five starters started their first ever varsity basketball game. And so, I had this team last year that had been playing together since the fifth grade, and I had coached some of them in middle school. We'd certainly been together for 4 years. We'd made, won conference tournaments 4 years in a row, whether I was the assistant or the head coach. We had this very deep tool bag, toolkit, this many item toolkit that we went to, whether it was schematic, emotional, psychological. And now we just have this tiny bag that we've been able to develop in like 3 weeks or a little bit of the summer. So it's widely noticeable that we don't have all these tools, whether they're like anchors or triggers or oh, they went into this defense and we have never faced it before. Um, and then to flip to the other side, it was kind of amazing that we ran into this defense that we really struggled with, and that in that one first game, they were able to adjust and survive a 12-0 run where the game went to three, and this team is good, and we could have folded, but they won. So that was really kind of a big highlight.
Right. Perhaps those players just have a better mental starting point than other players, right?
Yeah, I
So
think so.
uh, either
Well, it's
naturally
a
or
good
through
sign.
years of being in middle school or
It's
whatever.
an
Yeah.
early good sign. It's really hard to be. I mean, as Isabel was saying, she did. This is a paraphrase. She was like, she was talking to,
It's not a quote. Yeah.
yeah, Charlotte and Megan. She was like, some of my teammates they're 14.
Right.
They're freshmen. They're 14 years old.
And
That's,
to Izzy, this is ancient, very young,
well,
huh?
I mean, they're
She's like, I'm an
14.
old age.
Um, yeah, one of those 14-year-olds can jump up and touch the bottom of the rim, which is nice. But
Yeah.
yeah. So anyway, I think you're right. I think it's a good early sign that they have some of that fortitude. So with my own team, we sprinkle in these quotes. We have little 5 to 10 minute conversations about this before the game. We breathe. We do the 4-7-8 breathing exercises. So that's in for 4, hold for 7, out for 8, tongue top of the mouth as you breathe out through the mouth. That's Dr. Weil. If you've ever heard of Dr. Weil, he also is a proponent. Have you ever heard of him?
No.
Weil, healthy eating
I
guy
mean, I've heard of the
too.
breath thing, so maybe I've just ignored his name and
Yeah.
misread it.
So we do that. We do 3 cycles of that, and then we say, "I am ready." And then we do some visualization, which are related to this game plan, which we've been working on. And then we do some visualizing of some of the Bluehead stuff. I make it sound long. This all takes 4 minutes or less, and I try to trim it even more. So we do that every game.
Yeah, good. It
I
works for
can't
you.
imagine not doing it. It's funny because I never, I didn't, I've been a head coach twice, and my first team was 1995, and I didn't do this. I didn't lead this until 2 years ago.
Even at the old age, let's mention it's your birthday today.
Oh
Happy
yeah,
birthday.
podcast birthday, 55.
Even at your old age of 55, you can still learn new things always, right?
Yes, and my kids wrote on my packages. I had on my birthday presents. Can I read you some of
Yeah,
the things
let's hear a
they
couple of them.
okay. It's brown wrapping paper with blue basketballs. Package number one, 55 question mark? More like 5 plus 5. You're still a 10 to us.
Oh, that's a good one.
That's a
Clever.
clever one.
They
Yeah.
come up with that themselves?
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
I think they could write for a show.
Would never have thought of it.
So Izzy is at least going into filmmaking. So she might do
Yeah,
something.
awesome. Send her
Charlotte,
out to LA.
Charlotte, good. Well, she's going 3/4 of the way there.
Is she going to go to Utah?
I think she'll go to Utah. Yeah.
Oh, that's
How
exciting.
far is that from you?
We can go visit like a park out there,
For sure.
national park.
She brought that up today.
I don't know. Pretty far, 7 hours, maybe
Oh,
eight.
really? I'm driving her out. The plan is I'm driving her out there and then I'm flying home.
Vegas is 4, and then it's how much farther is it from
Yeah.
Vegas? I don't
I
know.
don't know if I want Iz driving by her. Maybe Iz and Tyler will come see you in Vegas.
Yeah, let's
All right.
go.
Package
I'll have
number.
to I'd feel so much responsibility. Good God.
That's true.
She's
Pack,
not 21 either. She wouldn't even want to go yet.
yeah, that's right. Um, Package number 2. I hope all your oh, I messed that up. I hope all your swishes come true.
Oh, that's another good one. I
That's
like
better,
that.
right?
Yeah, that is.
I think the last one is
I
the
think they
best
were
one.
equally good.
I think
I
this
don't know.
last one might be the best one.
Okay.
You are the big, beautiful Bill Trump has been talking about.
That's pretty funny.
That's great, right?
That's a pretty good one.
I think I'm supposed to say that joke is in no way an endorsement of our current president.
No, certainly not. Remember the old how a bill becomes a law
Of
song?
course.
Yeah.
It's actually often talked about um, given this current administration.
Oh, okay.
You
Yeah.
know, I mean, what the procedures we were taught in that animated video
They don't quite
do not are not ex that's not how
not
things
executed in
think.
the same way.
No,
Yeah.
they're not. I
Things
mean,
that we trusted and believed were foundations of our country seem to be irrelevant. Yeah.
it turns out there's no consequences for ignoring those things.
Right. Yeah.
Isn't it amazing?
Felon, it's okay.
It just, I
Yeah.
mean, it has to do with the person who's doing the ignoring
And
has the
everybody supports.
majority
Yeah.
in the checks. In the places that would check you,
Right.
he has the majority, so he's not being checked.
No one's interested in checking.
Although
That's on his side.
Marjorie
Yeah.
Taylor Greene is out.
Marjorie Taylor's out. And the New York mayor and Trump, they're buddies.
That was, yeah, the New York Times was interesting about
He
that. Right.
loves that guy. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm willing to grant that Trump is pretty entertaining and,
Yeah.
evil cheater
Destructive. Right.
slash pretty funny,
Unpredictable.
unpredictable, with an incredibly unique writing style.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, those are things that I'll give him. Okay, and so we covered people loved our Bluehead stuff, and then they're like, why did they have
Why
to
did they throw that political
why did they have
stuff
to
in
throw in
there?
the political stuff? So 40, no, what, 36% of the population got mad at this right there in the last 5 minutes?
Probably. Yeah.
Or they or
Those masses of listeners. Yeah.
the masses of by the way, how much of this should I say? During warm-ups of game one, I was approached at the bench with about 6 minutes to go until the game started, and I was told, "I love your podcast."
Oh, well, God bless that
Yeah,
person. Yeah.
great, thank you. Little weird time to tell me.
It's kind of funny. Yeah. I
Yeah,
like
it
it.
was funny. Uh,
Yeah.
I turned to Epps and go, "He loves the podcast. I have a great voice."
You have fans.
He
Yeah.
didn't mention your voice. He only
Well,
mentioned
that's unfortunate.
maybe
Yeah.
if you were standing next to me, he would have complimented
Maybe.
you.
Yeah. He'd be like, I gotta say something since she's there.
All right, and good to see you.
Good to see you. Happy birthday.
Thank you. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Smart takes the shot, and the Hoosiers with 3 seconds. Go ahead.
But what we found out is that each one of us is a brain and an athlete
And a basket case. A princess.
and a criminal. Does that answer your question?
I love you guys.